I consider myself lucky. You see, I went through my entire tenure as an undergraduate student before the safe space phenomena took root, and I'm quite thankful for this privilege. In certain ways, I must seem like a dinosaur today, but I still remember classes where thorough debate and challenged arguments were not only welcomed, but encouraged. Teachers, regardless of their own position, were generally fair, and even if I challenged some of the elements of their own theories, I would still get a good grade as long as I did so in a conscientious and well-researched way. Unfortunately, however, from what we see in the news, from what I hear from some of my younger peers, and from my own experiences as a graduate student, this is not the case at many of our universities today. You see, the safe space started out innocently enough. A guidance counselor or a teacher who wanted to reach out to the LGBT community or some other group would put a sign in their office saying, "This is a safe space for blank." At this point, the safe space meant safe from judgment, and it offered a place where individuals could discuss the issues that they were facing with someone who wouldn't judge them for things like their sexual orientation or their gender expression. This changed slightly, however, when teachers expanded the safe space from their office hours into the classrooms. An entire classroom, and consequently an entire course, would become a judgment-free zone. And whenever a point was brought up that could be considered offensive to certain individuals in the class, the student who had said it was reprimanded by the teacher, and the teacher made a point of showing how the comment may have affected the feelings of others in the class. The student wasn't prevented from writing papers on these topics, but there was now an overtone that he or she would take a risk if they decided to do so. In November of 2014, the modern concept of the safe space achieved widespread public recognition for the first time, when Brown University hosted a debate between Jessica Valenti and Wendy McElroy on how the school should deal with sexual assault. Discussing issues such as whether the culture promotes rape and what protections ought to be offered to those accused of rape, many students imagined that they might be triggered by the event and set up a safe space outside the lecture hall in an adjacent classroom. There were cookies, there were pillows, bubbles, counselors, and, I'm not making this up, videos of puppies. You see, the safe space was designed to protect students such as Emma Hall, who were, as the New York Times quotes, feeling bombarded by a lot of viewpoints that really go against my dearly and closely held beliefs. But what had once been an institution meant to protect people from judgment was now one that protected them from ideas. About a year later, the safe space once again changed dramatically, this time after an incident between the media and protest group Concerned Student 1950 at the University of Missouri. In this incident, student Jonathan Butler started a hunger strike on the campus lawn in solidarity with the protest group in an attempt to force then school president Timothy Wolfe to resign. A few days later, members of the Mizzou football team joined the protest, threatening not to practice or play until Wolfe was removed. When Wolfe resigned, hundreds of students rushed to the campsite alongside many journalists. The trouble came when journalists such as Tim Tye, a freelancer for ESPN, attempted to cover the event. Tye, like many other journalists, was asked to leave by members of CS 1950, but he refused to do so on the grounds that the lawn was a public space that he, too, was entitled to occupy. Building one of the first border walls of the decade, protesters bullied and pushed journalists from the site. Take a look for yourself.
I'm sorry, these are people too. You need to back off.
No, there's no law.
You know what? Let's back off about personal space. Back off. Leave these students alone. Keep your hands. Back off. You back off. Go.
Don't push me.
We don't want you to tell our story.
What makes this more troubling, though, is the fact that the reaction wasn't simply mob mentality from a few angry protesters. It was an intentional effort by Concerned Student 1950 to drive out media coverage. There were signs forbidding media, and even faculty member Melissa Click advocated for the use of force.
Hi, media. Can I talk to you?
No, you need to get out.
Well,
you need to get out.
No, I don't.
You need to get out.
I actually don't.
All right. Hey, who wants to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here. Help me get him out.
1950 was trying to protect with their safe space was something altogether different from the safe spaces of the past. Prior to this moment, we had seen safe spaces to protect people from judgment and safe spaces to protect people from ideas. But this safe space was intended to protect the group's story from being told by those who would tell it with a narrative unfriendly to the group. In fact, as CS 1950 writes in a tweet that was later removed, "We ask for no media in the perimeter, so the place where people live, fellowship, and sleep can be protected from twisted and insincere narratives." In doing this, Concerned Student 1950 made the safe space distinctly political. By trying to hold a private meeting in a public space, the group used force to try to limit access to information and limit speech on political debates. In other words, debates about rules, like the use of funding by a public university, which apply to everyone. And in doing so, I believe they were distinctly wrong. But we've come a long way from Mizzou to where we are today. Following the incident at Mizzou, we saw a backlash against safe spaces, but we also saw demands to make entire campuses into safe spaces. And after the Democrats lost the election, the tone of the safe space went from hopeful to outraged. The balloons and puppy videos have been replaced with torches and explosives, and indeed, the hints of violence that appeared at the University of Missouri became much more apparent at Berkeley. On January 31st, Milo Yiannopoulos, who the left seemed to love to call a Nazi despite the fact that he's a gay man of Jewish heritage, was slated to give a talk on cultural appropriation at Berkeley. Wanting to protect Berkeley from harmful speakers like Milo, a group known as Antifa, or the anti-fascists, rioted. The rioters burned generators.
So, Kyung,
Sorry, Anderson, we're just
did you
back up.
hear
I'm not
from
sure how much gasoline is in that.
Did you hear?
They smashed the windows of their own student union. They shot fireworks directly at police officers. And perhaps most disturbingly, they attacked unarmed students.
Are you surprised, ma'am?
Eventually, the administration of the school canceled the talk, citing concerns for student safety. But should they have had to? In an earlier speech, Milo himself gave an important warning about safe spaces.
When you hear about safe spaces on campus, you hear about, the fact that I might be a threat to student safety. And my instinct is to laugh it off. It's like, do I look fucking dangerous to you? But what they're trying to do is actually quite clever. They're trying to break down the distinctions between words and action. Why? Because they want to legitimize their own violent responses to you. If they can successfully dissolve the distinction between words and action, they can say that hurting you is an appropriate response to not liking something you say.
One need only to look to Berkeley to see how that turned out in practice. In my view, the contradictions of the safe space are now more obvious than they have ever been before. Here's the problem. You see, in here, we have Milo. And out there, we have our safe space. The meaning of safety has certainly been perverted. I mean, if this is a safe space, I'd sure as hell hate to see what a dangerous one looks like. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe below for more videos about the culture wars.